Hello, hello. Thank you so much to coming to our biggest event of the year with the SF Tech for Good meetup. And we're so excited to have you talk about social impact and tech. And we started in 2006, about 11 years ago, and we're volunteer run. Regina here, and stand up if you want, and is running the slides. So she and I produce about an event a month for social impact and tech communities, government, consultants, nonprofits, all kinds of change makers. And we are volunteer run, so your contributions for pizza tonight are greatly appreciated. And there's a box at the exit if you haven't gotten one yet. Next slide. Speaking of volunteer run, we are looking for more volunteers. If you want to help out with our website, our events, live streaming, photo, video, please talk to me or Regina at any point tonight. And you can also email us at san-francisco@netsquared.org with more information about what you want to help with. Next slide. And with that, we'll get on to our sponsors. Jim Nickerson from TechSoup will introduce TechSoup, and we'll get rolling tonight. Thanks so much.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here. Next slide, Regina. How many people in the room have heard of TechSoup? Raise your hands. It's a lot. How many people are customers of TechSoup? All right, we appreciate that too. Next slide, Gina. We're here, we're one of the sponsors of SF Tech for Good through NetSquared. Our NetSquared community has 50,000 people around the world that meet up just like this. And we're super happy to be here on the premiere night. This is your Oscars, right? This is your the biggest night of the year. We wanted to tell you a little bit about TechSoup. We're a global organization that we really just try to help global NGOs and nonprofits achieve their goals through technology. And just some numbers, we serve almost 1 million nonprofits and NGOs around the world. We just passed $9 billion in market value, and just last week we announced our 2 millionth product donation request. So as the guy that's in charge of brand also for TechSoup, I have an interesting problem. In the US, we're known for one thing. We're known for helping nonprofits get the technology they need to deliver on their mission. But around the world, we do much different things. We fight for civil society and social good. So for example, we build the infrastructure that helps Warsaw, Poland, build apps for Poland to help citizens build apps that help the citizens of Poland. We have an organization that helps foundations find and source exactly the right nonprofits around the world so they're able to give their money correctly. And what I'm going to have my friend Conor talk about is something called validation services, and he's going to explain how that helps to drive social impact in orgs.
Thanks, Jim. Next slide, please. So I'm Conor Mulherin. I've worked with TechSoup for 12 years now, and for the last 3 or 4 years I've been running our validation services program. By validation, I mean ensuring that nonprofits are in good legal standing, and also ensuring that the people that are representing those organizations are actually allowed to do so. Validation has been core to TechSoup and our ability to serve nonprofits around the world for many, many years. And by taking that core capability and allowing it to be plugged into the CSR programs of the companies we work with, we help to get more products, volunteering time, monies, etc., out to nonprofits around the world. This aligns with TechSoup's mission very nicely, and that is to connect nonprofits with the resources they need to fulfill their own missions. Companies running CSR programs need to know that they're working with true nonprofits. They also need to know that those nonprofits that they're working with already remain in good standing. Through our network, we've helped scale the CSR programs of the companies we've worked with. We've done this with hundreds of companies, helped them scale globally. And through that experience, more recently, we've also helped companies that are just starting their CSR programs to design the most efficient, most impactful programs that they can get. With that, and I'd love, and Jim would as well, talk about TechSoup or validation services later, so come find us, and thank you for the time.
Good night.
How's everyone doing? Jeez. Well, how's everyone doing? There you go. That's what I like to hear. All right, before we get started, I'm going to try not to fall on this thing. Before we get started, can we give a big round of applause to the SF Tech for Good team for organizing this? And also give a round of applause to LinkedIn for hosting us. Next slide, please. And the one after that one. There we go. Before we get into the panel introductions, my name is Jeremy Brown. I'm today's moderator. I'm the founder of Startups Give Back, which is a volunteering event where startups get together and we go out and help nonprofits. So with that, let's hand it over to Bari for the introduction.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Barry Saltman, and welcome to LinkedIn. I'm so glad that we could host this event here. Is the echo really bad? Or it's just, okay. Just me. So I am a manager on the social impact team here at LinkedIn, which is called LinkedIn for Good. And the vision of LinkedIn overall is to connect every member of the global workforce to economic opportunity. And my team sees ourselves as a team underlining the every in that vision. So connecting underserved communities who may face more obstacles than other communities face in connecting to jobs, resources, mentors that they need to succeed, specifically youth, refugees, and veterans. So really excited today to share a little bit more about our programs and partnerships that make this possible.
Next slide, please. Cheryl.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me now? Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Timoney. I'm with Salesforce.org. I am Director of Customer Philanthropy. And we, as a panel, decided we were not going to bore you all with intros. So there's my bio. But I did want to just start and thank everyone for being here. This is an amazing turnout. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to LinkedIn for hosting. It's really just so incredible to see this community come together. I was sharing with some of my panelists right before we got started that I'm from Santa Rosa, California, which most of you know has been, for the most part, devastated by these recent wildfires. You know, at Salesforce, it feels like or Salesforce.org, it feels like we've been hit after disaster after disaster with the fires in Las Vegas and Puerto Rico and what everybody's going through in Florida and Texas. And so, you know, now that my community is experiencing this disaster as well, it's even more heartening to be here among those of you in the tech community and the social impact community who really want to give back and work together to do good. So thank you all for being here.
Next slide.
Hi guys, I'm Henrique Saboia. I work at Lyft, and I think I'm the newbiest of this group. I'm new to sort of corporate responsibility, but I manage a team at Lyft that focuses on product marketing. And recently, I led the launch of a new feature called Round Up and Donate that allows all Lyft passengers to choose a charity and donate every time they take a ride. Which has been really exciting, and I'm excited to learn from the panel, from you guys, and tell you guys a little bit about my experience launching that program in a company of the size of Lyft. And from what Catherine said, the pizzas were paid with your donation, so thank you for dinner.
Oh, there's me. Okay, I think that's the end of the slides, right? Okay. Okay, just to kind of level set what we're going to be talking about today. So we broke this talk up into 3 sections. The first section is if you're thinking about starting a social impact program, how do you get started? What are the resources that are available to you? The second bucket is now that you want to start something, how do you get that executive buy-in and also the employee buy-in? And then last but not least, how do you scale the program? So that is how we're going to structure the talk. Sound good? All right. So the first question for the panel, let's start with Barry. So if you're starting from scratch, from absolutely nothing, what are the things that you would think about when it comes to creating a social impact program?
Sure. So I did not start LinkedIn for Good from scratch, but from my experience working with the team, I think that one of the first items of business when you were starting a program like this in any size would be to honestly assess the assets that your company has and maybe some opportunities or areas that aren't strengths. So as an example, cash is not one of our assets like the Googles or the Salesforces of the world. And so LinkedIn is not known for writing massive checks to the communities that we work with. But we recognized really early on that the employees who came to LinkedIn were primarily purpose-driven employees who were really brought alive by our vision and wanted to feel like they were personally playing a role in connecting people to opportunity. So we knew right away that we needed to start with employee engagement, and we now have over 10,000 employees who help us execute these programs globally. So that's one big asset. Another thing that I would consider is whether your products or your services are already social impact oriented in a way, or whether you can incorporate impact into them. So I'm sure Henrique will speak to this a lot this evening, but making sure that whatever you build aligns with your business metrics and the product that you're already offering the world, I think ultimately makes it easier in the long term to keep a program alive and to get buy-in at any level.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll just add to that, and I agree completely that thinking about your assets is the place to start. And even if you don't really have a lot of assets, that's okay. So I also didn't start Salesforce.org. We're 18 years old now, but if you've ever heard our CEO and founder, Mark Benioff, speak, he'll tell the story of how he started his philanthropic model. His goal was to give back 1% of our product, 1% of our employee time, and 1% of our resources. So the best of our assets. But the joke is, when he started the company, we didn't have a product, we didn't have employees, and we didn't have resources. So even, I think the lesson there is, think about what you can give as a company, and even if you're starting small, that's okay, it's still valuable. So for all the startups in the room, even if you're small, you don't have a lot of resources, you can't write a big check, that's okay, that's not the place we started. We started with nothing, and our programs have grown over time.
How many tech companies do we have in the room right now? Raise your hands high. Okay. What are some easy ways that tech companies can give back, beyond, obviously, the donations and whatnot?
I kind of have a follow-up question to that, but and it's for Barry. So you have this beautiful space here, which we're using tonight for this great event. And I know a lot of our nonprofits here, especially in the Bay Area, where rents are high, are in need of space. And so I always have thought, and we actually don't formally do this at Salesforce, but I've always thought that's a great way for companies to give back to their community, is offer a space for nonprofit organizations to work out of, to host events. And so my follow-up question is that an easy way to give back?
Yeah, I think for a lot of tech companies, maybe smaller startups that are in co-working spaces, you may not have that flexibility. But if you have resources like space, that's certainly something that can be easy to give if your events team is equipped to host nonprofit or community organizations. I also think that to the point about assets, again, while we think of assets as a big check or a big employee base, it also might just be your programming skills or your proficiency with LinkedIn. And I was just speaking to someone, Wen, who's somewhere out here in the dark, about how she brings tech trainers into the SF Public Library, and they have some really basic courses like how to make a profile on LinkedIn or how to begin using Android phones that they host for people in the community. And so that's something that if you're in tech, you might sort of take as a skill that you have for granted and that other people in the community wouldn't derive value from, but there are so many opportunities to take advantage of, and I'm sure TechSoup validation services can hook you up. But I do think that recognizing some of those skills can be beneficial to people outside of your company is an easy way to start creating impact.
So on that note, Henrique, and actually I think all the companies here use their product in some way to give back. So what are the things that other tech companies need to know in terms of using their own product, turning it into a way to make an impact? And can you, Henrique, we'll start with you. Can you talk a little bit about Lyft, how Lyft used its own platform to make a difference?
Sure. I think we're going to notice a trend here. But thinking about what are the core competencies that your company or that your product actually has that's differentiated and that puts you in a unique position to do a program that will work. For us, we have millions of transactions every day, millions of people using our app, millions of people who want to make a difference, or who we believe want to make a difference, and many of them have told us they want to make a difference. So for us, it was really about how do we capture that in a way that it's unique to us, and unique to what we do, it's unique to our platform, and in a way that really aggregates value to our users, aggregates value to the community and to the organizations that we're supporting. So for us, we had to do a lot of homework and think really long and hard to answer sort of three. We broke down the problem in three buckets. One was, what's the impact that we can have if our community actually engages with nonprofits or with any sort of corporate responsibility engagement? What's the size of the opportunity for us to have an impact on the community, on the organizations that need help, on the people that benefit from this, from the impact of our passengers and drivers in Lyft's case? Two, what's the business opportunity for Lyft? Every time we build something, a feature, or we're talking about really meaningful real estate in our products. And also human resources in the company that we have to dedicate to that. So a way to sort of quantify that is really important. And then three, to your earlier point, Barry, why should Lyft do it? Why can't just anybody do this? Is this unique for us to do it, to go and make it differentiated? Do we have any core competency that allows us to do it, to do something that very few people could? So I think those are sort of the three buckets that we broke down that challenge. And then after that, it was rolling up your sleeves and try to answer questions that your company never had to answer before. Like, how do you collect donations? How do you pass on tax deductibility to customers and things like that? That was a lot of operational challenges, but I think that we broke it down in those three buckets, and it made it possible for us to make an argument and make a pitch to the company and they were receptive to it.
Yeah, I like the piece you mentioned, Henrique, about only doing what you're best poised to do, and I can share one learning that we have had at LinkedIn around impact is that 3 years ago we built what we call the volunteer marketplace, and I'm sure many of you do not know this exists, unfortunately, but you do, yay! You win. Okay, so there are approximately 70,000 volunteer opportunities hosted on LinkedIn that are all skill-based volunteer opportunities, and that means that they require a unique professional skill set that we believe each LinkedIn professional has. And so I'm thrilled Cheryl uses it. There are hundreds of thousands of other people who also use it, but some people internally aren't even familiar with it. So we're working on getting the word out. But a lot of feedback that we get from people is that there should be all types of volunteer opportunities. If I'm organizing a fun run on behalf of a local charity, I should be able to post that on LinkedIn. And we recognize that there are a ton of other aggregators, Idealist, Volunteer Match, that are doing this well. And it didn't make sense for us to go into that space when our brand of LinkedIn is building your professional brand and finding opportunities that will add to that and really complement and help you use your skills. So I think it's important to be able to draw the line somewhere too and say, okay, this is where we add value, this is where we don't, and we're going to focus on investing in the former.
Do we have any nonprofits in the room? Are you guys using LinkedIn? There you go. Barry, could you actually quickly talk about, for the nonprofits that may not be using LinkedIn for the volunteering opportunities, can you talk a little bit about how they can start that process of getting involved with that?
Yeah, sure. So actually Volunteer Match is one of our biggest partners with the volunteer marketplace. We ingest volunteer opportunities that are marked as skill-based on their site. So that's where I would recommend going. And also for eligible nonprofits, we offer 1 free year of premium LinkedIn that you can use to source board members or volunteers. So if you're not already doing that, that can be a really good way to use search filters and reach out to people who can help you out as volunteers with your organization.
And Cheryl, Salesforce is using its platform to give back as well, right?
Yeah, so part of that 1% of our product donation I mentioned has now translated to 30,000 nonprofit and education institutions around the world using Salesforce as a platform for good to run their mission. So we donate the first 10 licenses of Salesforce to any eligible organization, and then in addition to that, we also discount the product. We've had some learnings over the years in that product donation strategy, and one of those is, Salesforce is an amazing platform, enterprise software. It's very powerful. It wasn't designed for nonprofits or education institutions to use it for their specific use cases around fundraising and donor management and volunteer management and engagement with alumni associations. And so we've had to really work and build out our own product capacity and work really closely with our community of users, what we call community-driven innovation. We have groups of community members who are using our product who actually inform our product strategy. In the last few years, we've launched the Nonprofit Success Pack as well as the Higher Education Data Architecture, both products specific for nonprofit and education institutions so that our technology is usable, user-friendly, and our social impact organizations aren't having to spend as many resources to implement our software.
So really the takeaway here is where there's a will, there's a way. Tech companies can use their product to give back. So let's transition to executive buy-in. So, okay, now that you know what goes into a social impact program, you want to start something up. If it's not a mandate from the executive team, what do you need to do in order to create a plan, a strategy, in order to pitch them and get them on board with social impact, and obviously scaling that down the road? Who wants to lead it off?
Okay, I'll speak to this briefly, and then I'm curious about the Roundup and Donate experience, so I'll hand it off. But I actually think that we should go back to the first question about what you need to do when you start a program, and I think a critical component is finding executive sponsors, and it doesn't need to be your CEO. Maybe it's your CMO or whoever's heading up people operations and talent, anyone who's in the room when these conversations are taking place at the executive level who can share a personal story about why they're passionate about social impact and really vouch for your team and what you're trying to drive. So the first thing is, I guess, don't end up in a situation where there's no buy-in. But I think the second piece for us has always been around business metrics and making sure that we're aligning. So back to the volunteer marketplace, we recently pulled data around how people are engaging with LinkedIn after they engage with a volunteer opportunity. And we found some encouraging data suggesting that maybe people who aren't already playing around with jobs on LinkedIn will come for the volunteer opportunity and then stay for the jobs, which obviously makes our careers team very happy and makes a case for investment. So trying to align the metrics, as Henrique has said, I think is key for people who aren't bought in simply because of the do-good aspect of your work.
Yeah, I'll second a lot of that. I mean, Lyft, I think, I know we're the youngest company on the panel today. Whoops. And so everything that we do, I mean, we still have, we have fewer engineers and bigger companies have fewer resources for that reason. So everything that we do needs to be really well thought out and figure out, is this really the best place we can invest our resources? So for us to get Roundup and Donate off the ground, we actually went bottoms up. It was a little bit interesting strategy. But first, I work with a team of engineers, and my first pitch was to them. It's like, is this something that you guys want to spend time on? Is this something you guys are excited about? We obviously, there were a lot of things that happened earlier in the year in the ride-sharing industry, and we, doing a lot of research in that period, we learned that a lot of our passengers, a lot of ride-sharing passengers, were making statements with who they chose to ride and who they wanted to ride with and who they were supporting. So it became a pretty clear customer insight that people, and it happens in a lot of different categories, that people want to associate themselves with organizations that are associated with causes or nonprofits that customers support. So we wanted to make it more explicit to our passengers that we are aligned with these causes, we're aligned with organizations, and we want you to be able to do your part very easily, very easy for you to support the organizations that you want, because it is hard. It takes time, it takes money, it takes planning to support a nonprofit that you're passionate about. So we felt that Lyft could play a role in making that a little easier. So first we pitched it to a team of engineers, like, would you guys be excited to build it? Second, we pitched it to a team of product, because we needed to have a product ownership over the feature. And only then, after we had thought through and had support to build it, we went to the executive level and say, hey, this is and kind of walk through those three pillars that I described earlier. This is the business metrics case for it. This is what we think we can move with it. This is what we think this is important to our key audience of passengers and drivers, so why we believe this is an important value proposition for them. Second, this is the actual impact we can have in the world around us, and that felt like a very natural extension of what Lyft stands for, what Lyft's done for the 5 years we've been around. So it felt very easy to pitch that, and why Lyft should be doing this, why no one else has the opportunity, or very few companies have the opportunity to do this. And here's a team of engineers who are ready to start building it. You just give us the green light, and we're ready to go. So it took us a little bit of time, but it was amazing to see how quickly, once you sort of painted that picture of how important it is, how interesting it could be for us to enter this market in a different way, that the company was excited to say, yeah, this is very Lyfty, as we say it internally. We're excited to support it. Let's change some roadmaps. Let's make it possible. So it was, and at that point, I'd only been at the company for 6 months, so it was actually amazing to see how open the executives were, and it helps to have a company that is really committed to doing not only well, but doing good. So that certainly helps.
I'll just echo the panel here that I think executive buy-in is critical for social impact programs to be successful within tech. I also think I happen to be very lucky to work at a company where the highest level of our executives, our CEO, is very, he's not just bought in, Mark Benny has not just bought in, he is really leading the charge in our company being a force for good. I was just speaking to Adonis, where are you? There you are, before the panel, and we were talking about how every employee who starts with Salesforce on day one, they are out in the community as part of their onboarding, working with one of our local nonprofits, whether it's the food bank or St. Anthony's Foundation here, giving back to the community. That's how invested we are, that it's part of our company and culture. So I didn't set any of that up. I happen to be lucky. But I do, just on a day-to-day basis, I do have to kind of challenge myself to make use of our executive sponsors. And one piece of advice I will say to any of you who are working in this space is don't be afraid to ask. I think sometimes we'll surprise ourselves with finding those pockets of executive sponsors who are really eager to get involved and just looking for a way to put their executive voice to work. And so sometimes I, day to day sitting at my desk, I might think, well, I I don't want to reach out to so-and-so executive. What are they going to say to, little old me? And I'm constantly surprised when I just shoot off that email how quickly executives from throughout the company are just jumping at the chance to be part of our program. So definitely don't hesitate to ask and make. And then the other point I'll make, which Henrique kind of mentioned this as well, is the great way to get an executive's attention is with data. And so when I get feedback on some of our employee engagement programs, when I'm asking our employees how are they experiencing our volunteer programs, what are they getting out of them, I go to actually our employee success or HR before I write any of my surveys and ask what are our executives interested in as far as employee engagement and retention. And I'm specifically asking for those questions so that when I need to get in front of an executive and get their buy-in, I already know what they're interested in. So just a couple tips on making really engaging executives throughout the companies.
So switching gears to employee engagement. So every Salesforce employee that I've ever volunteered with is pumped to talk about what you guys are doing for the community. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about how you guys create that energy. This is for every panelist here. Create that internal energy that gets employees on board, because unfortunately not everyone is all for CSR or social impact, however you want to call it. So what are the things that you do to create that energy?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do is not a whole lot. I think, and I didn't say this when you asked the earlier question about what are some easy ways to get started. I think just empowering your employees to give back, to get involved, to be a part of their community, to do things that they're already invested in, is a really great and easy first step to social impact work. And I think it's one of the reasons why Salesforce employees are so excited about giving back. Each of our employees gets 1% of their time, or 56 hours of paid volunteer time off in a year. And we are really, really flexible in how you use that time. So we have people who are working in their school, teaching soccer to their children and the neighborhood children, through to people who are building really sophisticated apps on our platform. And you can use your time however you'd like. And I think employees get really excited about being able to participate in the causes they're passionate about as part of their employment.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer about sort of catering to your employees and empowering them to spearhead the causes that they're passionate about. We've sort of taken a two-pronged approach. So we have a platform that allows employees to crowdfund for any cause they're passionate about, and LinkedIn for Good matches donations from employees. So that's one way that we've opened it up to meet the passions of any employees. But we have also narrowed our strategy in a way when it comes to employee engagement. And after a few years of just sort of doing random acts of social impact in our local offices, we established a program that specifically focused on connecting local youth to opportunity. And we actually found there was increased engagement when it laddered up to this larger mission and vision of LinkedIn. And again, I think that's because when people come to LinkedIn, we're getting this self-selecting group of people who already care about the mission and vision, which is helpful. And I assume with Salesforce or Lyft too, that's established in the interview process. So I think that's how you select for the right employees. And then I think having an employee engagement program that ladders up to something bigger that employees can get excited about being a part of, but also has the flexibility to support anything that people are passionate about is a good balance, or has at least been successful for us.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that, given that my program doesn't give a great way for employees to engage with it. But what I've learned is that just telling them what you're working on is amazing. Like, everyone wants to work for a company that they're proud of. Everyone wants to work for a company that is doing amazing things in the world while they can. And it's been incredible to just say, hey, this is a milestone we just reached. This is what we're doing. This is what we're launching. Give them a sneak peek. Like, show the deference to the employees and say, like, none of this is possible without you. And this is what we're working on, and we're really proud of it and want you to know. And give us feedback. Give us what you're thinking. How can we make this better? It's been, well, it was bound to happen. It's been amazing to hear their ideas, their feedback, and everyone is just really excited about social impact and how they can make a bigger impact.
So switching gears to scaling a program, what are some of the things that folks need to keep in mind in terms of essentially going from 0 to 100? Real quick. Name that song.
I'll take a first stab at it. I think so. I think we all describe similar experiences of building something or bringing something sort of from 0 to 1, and it takes a lot of work up front. But then once you get it approved, it's not smooth sailing, but you kind of have a mission. You have a launch date, and you're going to deliver it. The hardest thing is really how do we keep the company engaged and supporting the resources to keep this program vibrant, to keep it up to date, to keep it in line with everything that is happening in the company and the product. And I think, again, data is the answer to it. How can we measure not only all the promises that we made in the beginning of like, this is all the cool stuff we get to do. If you just give me the resources to build it, it would be really cool. And then if you just build it and never mention it again, like it would be hard to bring it from 1 to 100, right? So I think actually being rigorous and building everything that you need in place to measure the business impact that you promised or that your hypothesis said that you might get, the actual social impact, and continue to tell those stories of like, this is the level of impact that this program has and how many people are engaged in it and how much good is being done because of it, and keeping your executive sponsors like abreast of it. Like they put their name on the line and said, I'm going to sponsor this and I'm going to make this possible. Like keeping them in the loop on everything that you're doing has been really important for us on the Roundup and Donate team to make sure that it's still a priority. We're still growing the program, and to continue that conversation moving forward.
And I think qualitative feedback too. So if you're not launching a product that's as used as widely as Lyft, but maybe your employees are just starting to volunteer, capturing feedback, getting a sense of how employees feel about the company after they volunteer, or a really meaningful conversation that an employee had when they were having a mentoring conversation with a young person. Capturing those anecdotes, I think, helps build the case down the road when you're suddenly wanting to get buy-in for something much bigger. And I was also going to say that when scaling, it's really important to be aware of your team's bandwidth. And we sort of learned this the hard way when we ran a pilot last year that connected LinkedIn professionals as mentors to young people who were seeking career advice. And we got an immense amount of interest. We made thousands of matches. And then we said, okay, how are we going to actually scale this? We did this in Google Sheets, and we did. It was totally manual. And so we were like, wow, this is so successful. We reported to our exec staff, and then we realized, actually, this is not the way to go about this if we want to do this at scale. And now we actually have a team that's built a career advice marketplace. Have any of you used it? Okay, 2 people. Awesome. So it's in San Francisco and launching across the country and in English-speaking countries next month. So I'm really excited about that. But it basically matches mentors to potential mentees through machine learning algorithms. So that was a way to take it to scale. Yeah, so it's not always possible, but I think being honest with yourself about what 100 looks like when you're taking it from 0 and whether your team will actually be able to handle what it requires.
I'm so glad you admitted using Excel spreadsheet.
Actually, can I ask a follow-up question about that? How important was it for you to sort of have a part of the process held together by gum and tape to sort of get it off the ground before you can be like, hey, give me some more resources, there's a big opportunity here?
I don't know. I think that that's helpful when you don't have other research resources, right? To know that thousands and thousands of LinkedIn professionals were interested in this was great, even if it was super taxing to make all the manual matches in Excel. I think that at LinkedIn, we're also fortunate enough to have research resources, and you mentioned this too, like doing the market research months before you build a product roadmap and make the case to exec staff is huge. So ultimately, research of another subset of users helped us inform the career advice marketplace. But yes, I think just getting a sense for appetite is huge, however you go about it in the beginning. Spreadsheets?
Oh, that's okay. I'm glad you admitted using spreadsheets, because I can't tell you how many unnamed other companies use Google Docs and spreadsheets to run our social impact programs. And here we are, in the Bay Area. We're at tech companies, most of us here, and we really have to be able to leverage our own technology to run these programs. They just aren't scalable otherwise. When I started at Salesforce 3 years ago to launch our pro bono program, we were accepting our nonprofit applications on a Word doc, which just blew my mind. But at the time, we also had 27,000 nonprofit customers who could have benefited from this program, as well as about 15,000 employees. And there's just no way one person would be able to make all of those matches through Word doc and Excel. And so making that case early on to invest in your own systems and infrastructure, because otherwise, there really is just no way to scale these types of programs.
So before we get into audience Q&A, any parting advice? Could be about anything, social impact-wise.
I just think, and Cheryl alluded to this earlier, know the motivations of the audiences that you're serving and your internal audiences that you're looking for buy-in from. So if someone is really motivated by recruiting the best talent, find the research, and it's out there, that says that most employees want to work for purpose-driven companies. If there's someone who is really motivated by user engagement or revenue, find the research, it's out there, that says consumers are most likely to use products and services that they feel align with their vision and values. So making sure that whatever you bring to the table is in alignment with what your audience is really motivated by, I think, is key for buy-in.
I'll just go out on a limb here and say, in the tech plus social impact equation, the social impact piece is the really important one. And I think, we have a responsibility, or at least I feel I do at a tech company, to work really closely with those who are working in the community, solving social challenges on a daily basis, and ensuring that we're using our resources as a tech company to support them and partner with them and fill in, the gaps that they have. And so, as others think of what kind of social impact they can have and what resources they can leverage, I think, starting with the challenges that you want to tackle is, and working with those who are already experienced and knowledgeable in those areas is the place to start.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think we've all said this multiple times, use as much data as you can, to build the case. It's so, everyone wants to do good, but I think the hardest question to answer is what kind of good do we excel in, and we can do something unique with. So understanding your market, understanding your industry, understanding your product, and understanding sort of the potential impact that only you can have, or the potential business impact that this specific program you're pitching can have, I think is really important, and has gone a long way to help us build our program.
Awesome. Regina, do we have a microphone runner? All right. Questions?